I've been fortunate enough to attend all the previous meetings that the Tonto has put on regarding this forest plan revision, which began with listening sessions, which were extremely valuable because they were asking us what we thought about the forest, and then 2 really worthwhile workshops, one down at Tonto Basin, and now the series we're having right now. And some of the other meetings that we had like this were involved with game and fish and recreation, some of those topics and disciplines that Forest Service works with that we're not covering here tonight. But anyway, you all have a unique opportunity for the second part of this meeting. Thanks to Neil Bosworth and the Tonto Forest, they're asking us what we need and what we see about the forest. I believe other forests and so forth, when they did their forest revision plan, they did the plan and then asked for comments. So this is really a unique opportunity for you to take part in the second part of this meeting. So when Jamie asked me to say a few words here about rangelands, and she said if you would talk about partnerships and collaboration and what I see as our concerns and our trends for the future, and what this rangeland means to me, and what I think it means to you. So I'm going to use our ranch, the Bar X Ranch, as an example of what's happening on the rangelands right here. And as if anybody's been out, I'm sure all of you have been out to Hagler Creek, you go right by the headquarters of the Bar X. There's a picture of it on the way to Hagler Creek. And I'm going to find the arrow here. This one? Yeah. Oh, okay. Jamie was talking about partners and collaborators. I hope I beat her by listing a few more acronyms, and some of these are going to be on the test at the end of the second portion of the meeting here. I put this up here in jest. What are all these acronyms? Every one of these organizations has been out on our ranch. Ranching Today and Ranching with the Forest Service, and they're listed first here. And Jamie mentioned a lot about an annual meeting where we set up an AOI, an annual operating instruction. I don't meet with the Forest Service once a year. When we have a ranger and a staff here, I meet with them weekly probably. That's how close the collaboration is and the partnership with the Forest Service. They are #1 on that list. They're the land manager. I'm the tenant. Everything I do out there, I want to run by them to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. These people are professionals. They've been schooled in that rangeland management, and I want to utilize their knowledge. That's the backwards. First off, Forest Service, I just explained, and Jamie talked about it. They're our leading partner, collaborator, manager of the land. They, on the Bar X, you're all familiar with the sheep driveway. They have helped us by doing juniper thinning. Sometimes juniper thinning, if it's not done right, is not very good. And there's a problem here. And we need to get the burns coming in here to kill the new young junipers that are sprouting up and that are probably being fostered by tracked vehicles cutting the original junipers and promoting the growth of new young ones. We need to work on that. But they went out, the Forest Service went out and got the grant money to do this, and my hat's off to them for doing that. NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, a big player in Arizona. Most of our ranches could not exist without their help. It's the old Soil Conservation Service. We do project after project. This is a picture of a pipeline extension. So I'm pumping water from a well miles away and then dispersing it to drinkers to help distribute the cattle better to promote the decent grazing patterns out there. We don't want to hammer one area and let it be vacant on another. Spring development. Many of the springs in the area trickle water and it's soaked into the ground. We capture the water out of springs. and we capture it, and we put it down through a pipeline into storage tanks, and then out to drinkers for livestock and wildlife. We keep our drinkers full for the wildlife. Trick tanks. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a trick tank. This is another way to capture water. 50-foot by 50-foot tarp, probably 10,000 gallons of storage at this location, and then again fed to drinkers for wildlife and livestock. Again, working in partnership and collaboration with the NRCS. There's the storage tanks. Arizona Department of Agriculture has a program called LCCGP, Livestock and Crop Conservation Grant Program. I applied for that and got funding help, and I cost share on the funding, and we were able to build new fence. Most of the fences on the Bar X are 80, 90 years old. Arizona Department of Energy, how do they come into play? They came out with a program where they wanted to reduce the reliance on fossil fuels. Well, I was using generators to go out to my wells and pump water. They came up with a program where they would financially help me with a system like this if I would get rid of the fossil fuel and go to solar. It's a fantastic system. Why is it on a trailer? Well, if you have a ranch that's down near Phoenix or Tucson, your solar panels will probably be gone in about 2 months. I didn't even want to chance it, so I put it on a trailer and we move it to whichever well we're using at the time, again, for the pumping of water. This is not down at Hagler Creek, but this is a little spot on Pine Creek, but Arizona Game and Fish. I do many things with them. You're all familiar with Hagler Creek and Alderwood Campground, for example. There's a project right now that's going on to improve the habitat of the brown trout. Right up the road a ways, Mike Horton has a project with them to introduce the Gila chub. We have a species that's probably going to be listed called the narrow-headed garter snake. And of course, when I told this, and the likely habitat is along Hagler Creek, I try to get ahead of these things and work with Game and Fish to see if we can't rectify the situation about, oh, a cow can't graze here because we have a snake. So I got together with the supervisor's office and Chuck Denton. Chuck came up with some funds, and we've employed the services of a Dr. Matt Good from the U of A, who's a noted world-renowned herpetologist, and he has worked with the narrow-headed garter snake in the past. We want to show that the two can coincide, and is Hagler Creek really the logical habitat for them? This is a really interesting one. U.S. Department of Agriculture. There is an arm of Department of Agriculture in Tucson called Agricultural Research Service. They have a ranch down near Tombstone, Arizona, where they're studying all the effects of hydrology on our rangelands, especially focusing on erosion and what the different types of rainfall produces. I partnered with them. I love science. Anything scientific here, that's what I want on our ranch. So they brought a rainfall simulator out to our ranch, and for 2 summers they were out here, and they're going to be coming back again next summer. So if any of you would like to watch this in operation, it's a fascinating thing. What they did is they went to different veg types and different slope angles, put the rainfall on there, and determined first what the veg cover was on the ground, and then what this rainfall does to that. How much erosion is being created. What vegetation types reduce the erosion. This is the interior of that rainfall simulator. A lot of work went into that. It is so precise, and they can just regulate how much rainfall they want to replicate. University of Arizona, a huge player on our ranch. I have very close ties with the U of A. One of the programs we do, you're probably, some of you in here are familiar with it, the Reading the Range program with Dr. Jim Sprinkle out of Payson. We've been monitoring grasslands and vegetation on our ranch for 7 years. We try to correlate that with the rainfall to see what's happening, but we're looking for trends. We're looking to make sure that the production on my acreage is what it should be, and we try to make it better, and we see what utilization is. In other words, what my cattle are doing out there to each pasture. You know, we rotate our cattle around through about 15 different pastures on about 55,000 acres. We don't park them out there in one spot. The Rocky Mountain Research Station, an element of the U.S. Forest Service that does a lot of their scientific work. They have a station up in Flagstaff. I was very interested in riparian areas. We have several of them on the ranch, and they're very sensitive to livestock grazing and so forth. So I had Dr. Al Medina come down to the ranch and show us how to monitor that vegetation along those stream banks to keep it in perfect condition. You know, this is so unique for Arizona. Okay, one of our dogs. SRM. Jamie mentioned SRM, the Society for Range Management. I am an avid fan of that organization. It's made up of scientists, academics, and some ranchers. And that's the place where we discuss the topics of the day before they become official and on the street. And I utilize their knowledge every day. We have a fantastic summer meeting coming up in Sholo that's going to be covering exactly what the forest people here talked about. We're going to be looking at the post-Rodeo Chetasky fire and so forth, and what they're doing over there, and they're doing some amazing things. Gila County cattle growers. This is not what ranching is every day. It's not roundups and rodeos. But Gila County cattle growers, you know, obviously is a group that watches out for ourselves, a little bit of a lobbying effort, if you will, on issues that come up between cattlemen and women and other issues. Arizona cattle growers, the same thing, just on a higher level. Branding at the Bar X. Okay, what the heck is that? I even brought it here. And what is that acronym? U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Okay, Fish and Wildlife Service, they're the folks that set the policies for game and fish here in Arizona. Arizona Game and Fish usually carries them out. Sometimes ranchers have trouble with this organization. If you don't get in and collaborate and cooperate with those folks, something might be imposed upon you that you don't want. It's just, we have worked perfectly with them, but you have to get in there and talk, or you could have problems. Rangelands. The last two things that Jamie asked me to mention were rangelands, what it means to me. It means everything to me. It's a livelihood. I live out there. I work on them every day. I'm out. So it's very obvious for a rancher what that means. For you, I suspect firewood, recreation are much more important items to you than they are to me. And lastly, she asked me to say, what are my concerns and what are the trends that I see in ranching today? My first concern is drought. Without a doubt, that is the primary impediment to really ranching is to the absolute maximum that we can out here. I'm working right now with the University of Arizona and a whole group of people to address the issue of drought and drought mitigation and what we can do about it to better prepare ourselves so we don't have to go through another 2000 when, you know, everybody was kind of caught by surprise and the cattle had to be removed from the Tonto. We're trying to get ahead of that game. It's a tough one, obviously. But this study that's being done by Dr. Mitch McLaren at the U of A, I hope will go a long way to rectifying a lot of those problems. Drought is the first. My second concern, as I look at our Forest Service people, is the lack of manning and funding of the Forest Service. We can't function properly without you. And I know finances and the economy today is tough on everybody, except the price of cattle is really high. But we need you in this building here in town, because when we want to do anything out here, we need your okay. And it holds us back. So my second concern would be lack of manpower at the station here in town. And we have good news too, because we are filling some of the slots. I say we, the Forest Service is filling some of the slots on the range staff, which we really terribly need. Those are my biggest two concerns right there. If we could solve those two things, we'd be in good shape. So I think I'm the end of it before everybody wilts to death, but the next part coming up is really important because it's your chance to tell the Forest Service, what your priorities are.